Welcome to Destination History. I'm your host, Brian Coughlin.
For over 30 years, I've been traveling the world producing documentaries that uncover the fascinating history of remarkable places that you can still visit today. Destination History is a whirlwind tour exploring these amazing locations around the globe.
In this episode, we travel to two places where the past refuses to rest. One, a sun-soaked paradise hiding a haunted history of restless spirits. The other, an ancient city, once thriving, now silent, yet echoes of its lost empire still whisper through the ruins. Some places may fade, but their ghosts remain. This is Destination History.
Our first stop is a little piece of paradise located at the southern tip of the United States, Key West, Florida. With its turquoise waters, fruity cocktails, and carefree vibe, this island draws people from all over the world. But behind the colorful houses and lush gardens lies a darker, more mysterious side, a side haunted by the spirits of those who once called Key West home. So grab your ghost hunting gear, or perhaps the city's signature rum runner cocktail, and follow us into two of the city's most famously haunted spots. First up, we've got the Hemingway house. Ernest Hemingway, aka Papa Hemingway, literary giant, big game hunter, and notorious drinker. In the 1930s, Hemingway came to Key West and decided, this looks like a nice spot to write, party, and collect a small army of mutant cats. So he moved in, set up his writing studio above the carriage house, and churned out classics like For Whom the Bell Tolls and To Have and Have Not. But apparently, Hemingway's attachment to this place went beyond the here and now. Fast forward almost a century, and some visitors swear he never really left. Witnesses claim that Hemingway himself, despite his tragic end far from here, still walks the halls of this house. They've reported hearing the unmistakable sound of typewriter keys clacking late at night in the writer's studio, despite the room being empty. Some even say they've seen a figure with Hemingway's signature broad shoulders and barrel chest looking out onto the courtyard, as if he's pondering his next masterpiece, or perhaps just keeping an eye on his beloved cats. Though Hemingway died back in 1961, wandering through the property, it's easy to imagine he'd still feel tied to this place, where he was happiest, where his imagination flourished. Perhaps he returns to Key West for a sense of solace, or perhaps he's waiting for something, or someone. If Hemingway's restless spirit is truly still here, you can bet it's standing poolside, marveling at the cost of a pool that, legend has it, was the final nail in his wallet. That penny embedded along the edge of the pool? Rumor has it Hemingway tossed his last cent here after one of his expensive, impulsive renovations. So if you feel a sudden chill when you walk past this pool, well, maybe you've just brushed past the ghost of a man still counting his pennies. A mile or so away from the Hemingway house is another iconic home, the Audubon house. Named for the celebrated naturalist and painter John James Audubon, this home holds stories of its own, many of them unnervingly eerie. Here's a fun fact. Audubon himself never lived in this house, but he visited Key West in 1832 to paint and document the birds of Florida. Today, the house is filled with artifacts and prints of Audubon's work, and visitors can see the room where Audubon may have stayed during his time here. The real deal with this house is that it was built in the 1840s by Captain John Geiger, a ship captain who made bank recovering cargo from shipwrecks. With all that sweet loot, he built this mansion, filled it with nice things, and settled down. And that's when the ghostly drama kicked in. It's said that one of Geiger's young daughters fell ill and passed away here, and visitors to this day claim to have seen her, gazing out of the windows, as if for someone who'll never come home. Oh, and it gets better. Guests say they also see a distinguished-looking man in period clothing, who may or may not be Captain Geiger himself, strolling around like he owns the place. Rumor has it he's known to glare at visitors as if to say, "Can I help you?" "Yes, Captain Geiger, you built this house, but could you not haunt it, please?" Today, both the Audubon house and the Hemingway house continue to captivate tourists, not just for their rich history and cultural allure, but for their spooky reputations. Are these houses genuinely haunted, or is it the lingering energy of their legendary past residents, whose passions were so powerful that they seem to echo beyond the grave?
From haunted mansions to restless spirits, Key West has its fair share of ghostly guests. But what if I told you that echoes of the past aren't just limited to old houses, but entire lost cities? Pack your bags. We're trading in the tropics for ancient ruins, where whispers of an empire still linger.
Our next destination is southern Europe, Italy to be exact, to an ancient port city that once bustled with life, trade, and the occasional argument over who had the best jug of wine. Welcome to Ancient Ostia, a place that, in its prime, was the gateway to the Roman Empire. Picture it. It's the 1st century CE. Rome is expanding rapidly, thriving on imported goods and a booming population, and it desperately needs a port to keep up. Enter Emperor Claudius, who commissions the construction of new upgraded port facilities at the mouth of the Tiber River, cementing Ostia as Rome's primary point of entry for its overseas trade and supply needs. And just like that, Ostia went from being a sleepy little port to the Amazon warehouse of the ancient world, just without the 2-day shipping. Ostia is often described as Pompeii's laid-back, less famous cousin. But while Pompeii froze in time thanks to a volcanic mic drop, Ostia offers a sprawling lived-in vibe. It's sort of like stepping into an ancient city that didn't hit pause mid-chaos. At its peak, this wasn't a sleepy port, it was a thriving hub of 100,000 people, packed with warehouses, workshops, and temples. Walking around here, you could almost hear the ghosts of shouting dock workers, wheeling and dealing merchants, and a multicultural mix of sailors. One of the most popular sites is the Teatro de Ostia. Built in the late 2nd century, this open-air theater could seat up to 4,000 Romans, offering everything from dramatic performances to gladiator fights. No popcorn, no plush seats, just pure, unfiltered entertainment on stone benches that were as unforgiving on the back then as they look now. But hey, the acoustics? Top-notch. In fact, concerts are still being held here. Just behind the theater is the Piazzale della Corporazione, aka the Plaza of the Corporations. This was the hub of Ostia's commerce, a courtyard filled with stalls identified by a mosaic, animals, boats, even the name of the trader's city. Here, merchants, shippers, and dealmakers did business, probably arguing over prices and haggling like their lives depended on it, which, given the stakes of ancient commerce, they kind of did. Every Roman city needs a forum, and Ostia is no exception. This was the political, religious, and social heart of the city, a place where important announcements were made, officials argued over laws, and everyday people gathered to gossip about who owed who. Back in the day, this space would have been flanked by impressive temples, statues, and administrative buildings. Today, it's a little more minimalistic, but with a good imagination, you can almost hear the debates and prayers echoing off the stones. Next up, Ostia's ultimate social hotspots, the bathhouses. These weren't just places to get clean. Business deals, political alliances, and the juiciest gossip were hashed out here, proving that even in ancient Rome, people liked to mix business with a little R&R. The Baths of Neptune are the most famous, with its stunning black and white mosaic floors. Every tile tells a story, and every soak probably came with a side of overheard drama. Who needs a podcast when you've got steamy baths and ancient tea? The House of the Yellow Walls. Ostia's real estate market was booming back in the day, and this luxurious residence was the envy of the neighborhood. Think of it as the ancient Roman equivalent of a designer home, except with way more frescoes and slightly fewer plumbing issues. The vibrant yellow plaster gives this house its name, but the details are what really makes it pop. Look at those intricate patterns and painted borders. Proof that ancient Romans were masters of interior design. Forget IKEA, these folks went all out when it came to home decor. Like any self-respecting Roman house, the House of the Yellow Walls has a central atrium, a space where guests were welcomed, rainwater was collected into a decorative basin, and the homeowner's economic status was silently screamed at everyone who dropped by to visit. Because what's the point of a fancy house if no one knows you have one? Today, the House of Yellow Walls is one of Ostia's best preserved homes, giving us a vivid look at how the 1% of ancient Romans lived. So next time you're planning a remodel, maybe take a page from their playbook. Yellow walls, anyone? Next up, the warehouse district. Ostia's warehouses weren't just about storage. They were a logistical powerhouse, with grain arriving from Egypt, olive oil from Spain, and wine from Gaul. It was like an ancient version of Amazon Prime, only with fewer tracking updates. Check out the sturdy walls. These were built to protect Rome's precious supplies from both raiders and rodents. Back in the day, a single mouse could probably inspire panic. After all, an empire doesn't run on empty stomachs. And finally, we have a latecomer to Ostia's scene, the Christian Basilica. By the 4th century CE, Christianity was spreading faster than gossip in a bathhouse, and Ostia wasn't left out of the trend. The Basilica marked one of the city's first big steps into the Christian era, a proper worship space for believers who were, frankly, over the whole secret meeting in the catacombs vibe. The Basilica would have been a stunning structure in its time. Soaring arches, gleaming marble columns, and a sense of divine awe that felt, well, a bit different from the pagan temple crowd. It was a place where Ostians prayed for salvation and maybe a break from the butt-numbing theater benches. Today, the atmosphere is more quiet ruins with a touch of nostalgia, but if you close your eyes, you might hear the shuffle of sandals, murmured prayers, and the occasional grumble from someone jostling for a better seat. But life wasn't always so serene in Ostia. After centuries of action, Ostia eventually lost its spot as Rome's main port to Portus, a newer, fancier port built further up the coast. Then, as the Tiber River silted up, Ostia slowly faded into the background, a city left behind as nature and time took over. And there it stayed, buried in silt and sand, until archaeologists uncovered it centuries later. What remains today is an incredible peek into Roman daily life, a time capsule of temples, theaters, markets, and warehouses. So when you're done visiting the ruins in Rome, head over to Ostia, because without this place handling the goods, Rome's glory might have been a little less glorious.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Destination History. If you're craving more ancient lore, haunted houses, or just want an excuse not to do your homework or honey-do list, be sure to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that like button and send us your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you as we uncover the past, one destination at a time.